Hey, so I wrapped up the install on your LaTha hilt with a Proffie v2.2 with a custom chassis. So I'm just going to do a quick little video on some of the features of the install as well as the actual install itself. So here's your LaTha hilts. We have our two buttons over here, auxiliary button down here, main switch over there. And there we have a blade plug, which I cut down to length. That way it's not sticking out the emitter. With this setup, you have about 1.5 inch of blade depth to work around with. Down here with the pommel, we have our sound vented silver pommel cap. So there's one visible hole here for sound venting. Along the actual silver pommel, there's actually hidden sound venting as well. If you want the saber to be louder, you can actually unscrew this pommel off. That way you just have a straight hole for the speaker to vent sound through. To access the internals of the chassis, all you need to do is just unscrew this body section. You don't need to unscrew the pommel at all. So unscrewing that, revealing the chassis inside. Here's your Proffie v2.2 in a static chassis. We have a kill switch here to cut power to the board. We've got our protected button top 18650 battery. Got a 28mm bass speaker. And this is a removable battery setup, and it's actually a little bit easier to remove than the stock TXQ factory setup. So to remove the battery, I just kind of like to dig my finger in there and just remove it from the positive end. In the battery cradle, you'll see that to the side that's marked positive there and negative there. Make sure that you're always inserting the battery in the correct orientation. So the negative side would be the flat side of the battery, positive would be the button top of the battery. Right now I have a test battery, it's a little beat up. I'm going to be including a brand new battery with this install. When inserting the battery, I like to do negative side first because my battery cradle does have a little lip here. This helps to hold the battery in a little bit tighter, especially if you're dueling or light dueling, and if you're making impacts, this helps hold the battery in a little bit more. Back here, you may have noticed that there's a button. So this button is actually wired to the boot button on the Proffie board. In case you need to put it into bootloader mode, instead of pressing the two buttons to get into bootloader mode to install Zdig, which you actually don't even need to do now. But in case you do need to put into bootloader mode, you want to hold this back switch and then just toggle on the kill switch. That puts the board into bootloader mode. And if you want to set it back to the currently flash default settings, you would want to flip the kill switch off and then flip it back on. With the kill switch, we have, so currently the kill switch is in the on position. If you toggle to the left, that's off. To the sides of the kill switch section, you also notice that there's like an O symbol there and like an I symbol there, symbolizing for an open circuit, so off, and a closed circuit for on. And then to turn on a saber, just flip the kill switch to the right. Once your saber has power running through it, you can screw the body back on and then play around with your saber. On this saber, I have swing on configured as well as twist off. Got our main button over here and the auxiliary button over here. To insert the blade, you want to unscrew the blade retention screw back here. Currently, I only have one blade retention screw in, which is actually more than enough for this kind of setup. So taking an Allen key, this is a 2mm Allen key for a M4 set screw. I want to just loosen that. Just enough, you don't want it to fall out. And then you want to remove the blade plug. So I opted for a kind of tower blade plug. That way it's slightly easier to remove. Once you have the blade plug removed, you want to seat your pixel blade in. On this kind of setup, I have it configured for blade detect, so when the saber actually makes contact with the blade, it makes a sound, and then when you disconnect the blade, it'll make another sound. So just make sure that the blade is seated all the way in, and then tighten down your blade retention screw. Usually I like to tighten it down so that once it makes contact with the blade, I do maybe about a half turn, just to kind of keep it snug. Currently on the SD card, it actually came with a few preloaded fonts, so I've styled most of them. They contain kind of some Fallen Order Calcessus fonts, as well as some miscellaneous character fonts on there as well.
Cyan. Green. Orange. Yellow. Purple. Red.
Anakin.
General Kenobi.
You better get on with it. I sense so much ink, Kenobi.
And it goes into the dark side fonts.
I am told it is the dark saber.
You are blue.
So there you go. That's your LaTha installed with a custom static chassis with a Proffie v2.2. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'll have the config that I've loaded onto the Saber on the SD card as well. And I can also send you instructions on how to actually configure it. So thank you so much for letting me work on the Saber, and may the Force be with you.